Hey everyone, MusicMan82 here. I'm here tonight with a couple of the most famous double IPAs that have ever been brewed in this country. And I have them both on hand. This one is very difficult to get. This one used to be, but is not anymore. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So, figured I would taste them side by side and kind of give a comparison about them, talk a little bit about the beer's history, why they're famous, are they as good as their hype cracks them up to be. So it's one of those nice cold nights in Powell. We got a little bit of snow earlier, and it's a beautiful night to try some big beers. So cheers. When I was first really getting into craft beer about 5, 6 years ago, these were two of the beers that I heard about and were like, oh man, you got to have these someday. And pretty much these two and the Heady Topper. And I've since had Heady Topper, and I won't lie, it's my favorite of the three beers for sure. But these two beers are brewed on opposite ends of the country. They both started being brewed around the turn of the century, and they both have interesting histories about how they came to be and why also that they became famous. So first, I'll talk a little bit about the Dogfish Head beer. This is the first of the two that I had. I was able to pull a bottle a few years back in a Craft Shack shipment, and I was really excited to try it. And it comes in at 9% alcohol and 90 IBUs, and the beer is very, to me, having had so many insanely hoppy beers, it doesn't come across as super hoppy. And it's to me, a malt bomb of an IPA. And the malt, I love the malt in this. I generally don't like malty IPAs, but for some reason this one has just a really solid malt. And even though I'm always chasing hops and more hops, there's a lot of times I'm in the grocery store and I see this, man, that just sounds really good right now. So this beer was developed in 1999 and out in Delaware, and the owner and brewer of Dogfish Head Brewery, which started out super small around that time, wanted to take the IPA and make something bigger out of it. And he had the inspiration for continuously hopping a beer. But when he was watching a cooking show, and there someone was talking about making a soup and how they added pepper pretty much all the time during the entire soup making process, and he was like, I wonder if that would work with hops. So generally, hops added at the beginning of the brewing process contribute a lot of bitterness, and hops at the end of the brewing process contribute more floral aroma type of stuff. And so he was like, let's see what happens. And his big thing was, how do I accomplish this without having to stand over a brew kettle the whole time this beer is brewing? So what he finally settled on, a moment of inspiration, he bought one of those old vibrating football games and rigged it so that it would sit over the brew kettle and continuously vibrate the hops into the beer. And so it seems absolutely crazy, but it worked for him. And the first time he brewed this beer, it was a huge success. He said the third time wasn't, because the football game couldn't stand up to the vibrating process for that long and finally quit. So they had to come up with some new methods. But when this beer came out, it was a super hoppy beer, and a lot of people looked at it and was like, oh my goodness, that is too much, it's not going to happen. And it just was not, there were some people took to it, but it was a little bit, it took a while for people to really get into it. It was before a year or so had passed. He actually got a call from the guys that started the Beer Advocate site, And this was the #1 rated beer on that site when it came out. And then Esquire magazine rated it the #1 beer in America. And since then, it's had a very, very famous reputation. And there's a good reason for it. To me, it's very middle of the road when it comes to hops, but it's just still, like I said, very malty to me. But man, this beer is great. I definitely love it. So that's pretty much the Dogfish Head. Definitely one thing that's in common between these beers is you get a lot of the pine type of flavor from the hop. And that's not something I find in as many IPAs. Paco's from Snake River and Jackson is a very favorite example of mine that has that pine note to the hop to it. And that's one of the first IPAs I fell in love with. And so one of the reasons I like both of these. But I also just love the big tropical hop bombs that have come out recently. So anyway, that's the Dogfish Head, and that's an amazing beer. Cheers. Russian River Pliny the Elder is brewed in California, and this is a beer that is incredibly difficult to get, and people wait. I know I've heard stories of people waiting in line for hours to try and get a single bottle of it. And it debuted a year after this one, and so 2000 it was first entered in a double IPA competition out in California, and it's a really, really awesome beer. This one of the big hops in this one is the Simcoe hop, which also was really first used in brewing, came out in 2000, and you see that in everything now. Centennial, CTZ are also used in this one, and as you can tell if you look at the malt color, much darker. This one is 8%, and this one has a little bit of cloudiness to it, and this one does too, but this one is just a hair cloudier. The nose on this one, and I know that this is one of those beers that most IPAs need to be consumed fairly quickly after brewing, and so this one is go between 1 and 2 months old, and it definitely, I would love to taste it a week after it was brewed. It has a lot of the nose to it there. I definitely get, it's a very complex nose, and I was able to get a few bottles of it, and this is my last one, unfortunately. And the first time I tried it was on Saturday, and you'll see that in my most recent beer tasting video with Mike. And I definitely was a little bit disappointed because it's hyped up to be one of the best beers in the country. It still rates as the #2 rated Imperial IPA on Beer Advocate, second only to Pliny the Younger, which is from the same brewery, which I hope to get soon. We'll see. And so I was kind of expecting just to be knocked over by the hops, and you have to go back 20 years when hops weren't as big of a thing. This beer was different for that time, and it's definitely, to me, an amazing beer. And since Saturday when I tried it for the first time, I've definitely grown to appreciate it a little bit more. I think there's a lot of complexity in the mouth feel, and I noticed that a lot of IPAs have a little bit harsher mouth feel, and this is a very smooth beer for an 8% IPA, and so I'm enjoying all the different flavors that I'm getting in the hops. Definitely some tropical fruit for sure, but there's also that same kind of piney flavor that I talked about that's definitely present in this. So yeah, this beer, yeah, I really, really enjoyed this beer. And after I tried it for the first time, and I thought, man, I should do a video of 90 Minute and Pliny. This one, I was going to be like, yeah, I like this beer better. And I would say they've pulled pretty even for me. And right now, I would have a really tough time deciding which one I like better at the moment. Part of me is almost leaning this way. I don't know if it's just my palate tonight, but last night it was this one. So go figure. That's the world of tasting beer. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and it's like, he was saying, some days he likes just straight West Coast IPAs, no haze, no juice, just straight up IPA. And then other days he likes, a lot of hazy. And I said, for me it's about 80-20. I love the haze, but there are days when I need just a solid IPA like this. So both fantastic beers. Hopefully enjoyed this comparison of the two. Give the video a like if you did, and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you around for more beer videos in the near future. Cheers.